Hello and welcome to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. It is a privilege to have Galiano, founder of Boxabl here, one of the top campaigns, if not the top, Reg A Plus of all time in the equity crowdfunding world. Galiano, been looking forward to today's discussion. Thanks for joining.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, my company is Boxabl. We're here in Las Vegas with a factory to produce houses. And we have a whole bunch of technology and innovation that we think is going to allow us to mass produce housing on a scale that has never really been possible before, and hopefully have a huge impact on affordability of housing.
And Galiano, what's your background? What brought you in to the world of housing and inspired you to create Boxabl?
For me, it's just been kind of random entrepreneurial pursuits, latching on to places where, I felt I could, add value and dial it in and make money. So the last two big businesses I had before this, one was a marijuana business and the other was Bitcoin exchange business. And then for Boxabl, just kind of started as a side project with myself, my father, Paolo, and another guy named Kyle. And the original idea came from when Paolo actually built a house. And he built using traditional modular, and he just kind of dove right in and got some experience of all the issues surrounding building construction, contractors, wide load shipping of houses. And he just, realized that there was a lot wrong, a lot of improvements to be made, and just what a big opportunity it was. And back then was when he had the original idea to fold up the house. And if you haven't checked out Boxabl, head over to our website and you'll see that our houses are, you can initially notice that they're unique because they actually fold up, and they fold up so that we can ship them in the most cost-effective manner. Because when you're talking about factory mass production, if something's too big to ship, you can't build it in the factory, and that's why we build houses kind of by hand in the current method.
So you have this success in the marijuana business, Bitcoin exchange. You hear about all the obstacles that exist in home building and how it affects the majority of Americans or citizens of any country for that matter. You then look at modular, the inefficiencies, and say, hey, if we do this in a folding fashion, shipping, all these different areas of logistics become more manageable. And the costs, the timeline to construct, which is a daunting assignment at that. I've looked into land and building, and there are so many deterrents, but that all gets eliminated with Boxabl. And you guys have, how many iterations did you have to go through to be able to get a product that was ready for market?
Yeah, it's definitely a really big opportunity and a really big market size. We started back in around 2018 with the initial kind of website drawings, and started to gather interest. At a certain point, we got a call from the Builder magazine, and they asked us to deploy a house at the International Builder Show in Las Vegas at the Convention Center. At that point, we didn't have a house, and we didn't have anything except an idea, basically. And so, we had a meeting and said, should we commit to this? Can we get it done in time? And at that point, we decided to do it and managed to pull it off, build the first prototypes and deliver them to that show. That first version was actually not the casita as people know it today. Our first product that we're launching now is called the Casita. It's a 20 by 20 room. It's kind of like a little studio apartment. It's got kitchen, bath, bed, couch. It's about 400 square foot, and it's a little house that's built in our factory and shipped to site. But back then, we hadn't really refined the starting point as much. So the first product we created was two 40-foot room modules. So let's say 800 square foot each, two boxes that connected together to create a 1,600 square foot fully sized house. So that was the first version that we deployed to the Builder Show, and got some initial interest and kept running with it. And then, after thinking about it a lot, examining the markets, understanding the various issues and opportunities, and then noticing what was going on in California, where they had kind of legalized what they're calling accessory dwelling units. So putting a backyard house in the backyard of the main house. So putting like a little granny flat kind of cottage. They're really encouraging that. In California and elsewhere around the country, we said, you know what, let's start with our kind of our smallest room module, and we'll go out with that, and we'll try to get interest in that. And it turned out to be a really good decision because of course people are interested in housing solutions, building construction solutions, but like kind of tiny house living is like trendy and there's a lot of hype around it. A lot of people are interested in downsizing. So it added another layer on top of Boxabl, which is not just all the innovations we had in the building construction and the manufacturing and the shipping, but added like tiny house into the mix. And I think that's one of the things that helped us take off. So then for that next year at the Builder Show, we built 3 prototypes of these little 20 by 20 room modules and deployed them. And that was the first kind of prototype of what we now call the casita. And then shortly after that, we jumped into full speed into production here in the factory, making those units.
So starting with the 40 by 40, moving to the 20 by 20, seeing markets that were really resonating with that, the hype around tiny homes and all the beautiful elements of them. I mean, I don't know if we could pop up some visuals here on my side, but either way, the bathrooms, the living rooms, everything that is involved in the layout of the casitas, yeah, it is amazing. It's clean, it's modern. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of the homeowner itself, themselves, and determining what layouts are going to consist of, which I know is a big undertaking for tiny homeowners. You guys are building all these out, all the details. How come more groups in the space weren't doing it? How come more companies in the vertical that you were stepping into were hesitant to going down this road and ultimately missing this opportunity?
Well, building construction and the cost to produce housing is, a big problem all over the world, and no one can seem to really figure it out in a way that really works. And as a result, there's always talks of housing affordability and labor shortages and all kind of issues with that. So it's just like an incredibly big opportunity, and it's not an easy problem. It's not an easy lift. What we're doing requires considerable, resources on every front. Just the sheer money alone that you need to attempt something like this is massive. I mean, even one product that we sell, if it's $60,000 for one single product, that's a big ticket. This is a big factory. We do have about 60 different patents, over 60 patent filings. So we have kind of across the board in innovation, invention, so much new stuff with what we're doing here. And I think it took kind of an outsider's perspective because, really very few people at this company, including, the 2 owners, myself and Paolo, really have much experience with building construction. So we kind of had a different perspective, and we weren't maybe tainted by all these preconceived notions about how it should be done. So, not only have we solved the shipping problem with our product, but we're not even using the traditional building materials. So traditional building products like, wood and nails and insulation and sheetrock, you're not going to find those types of things in our product, and certainly not used in the traditional way. And, we kind of scoured the whole planet for all alternatives that made more sense, that fit better in the factory, that met the various requirements you have for a building. So this is not an easy problem, and we're on our way to figuring out, but even we certainly haven't figured it out yet. We definitely have, I think, a lot more momentum than everyone else, and probably a better shot at being the winner. But if we do solve this problem in the way that I think and I hope we will, it's just a tremendous opportunity, because this is one of the biggest markets in the entire world. This is building construction. It's multiple trillions of dollars. Like I said, our product goes beyond tiny house into single family, into apartment buildings, into most building types on the planet. And if we can dial that in and actually mass produce housing faster and at a lower cost than anyone else without really compromising on anything, it's game over. We're going to clean up with this.
Massive numbers. as listed on your pages, you're talking about all the different applications, all the different avenues, and how you've been able to take that outside of the box approach and apply it here. We worked with prefab home companies years back, some of them working with major design magazines and design companies. And I remember the obstacles there. It really seems like you've been able to take that fresh approach, streamline the process, and as you said, are looking at all of these different sub verticals for construction where you could apply it. You did the builder show, you did it the next year. You then started building some partnerships, some very notable social proof, some of the biggest names that exist at that. How were you able to build these inroads? How were you able to get the attention to start getting that third party validation of the product?
I think we definitely hit a turning point when I figured out how to do effective marketing and get the word out. And at a certain point, I just realized it was a numbers game to get more people to find out what we were doing. And then, a certain amount of those people would be able to help us in various ways. So we went down the path of, social media, influencers, just kind of being, viral on the internet. And, in a modern world, that's how you get in front of people. And so as soon as I realized that was working, I just kept doubling down on it. And then that led us into, crowdfunding. That led us into having this huge customer wait list. A lot of our employees found out about us through social media, a lot of our other partners, a lot of our suppliers. So the marketing has just paid dividends, and we'll continue to push resources into that, because, you need people to find out what you're doing, and then you need to capture those leads and, make use of them.
Sure. And just to give a better sense to the audience, who has talked about Boxabl? Who has validated, whether it's a publisher, individual? I mean, I imagine it's a long list at this point.
Yeah. So the big one that was kind of a lucky break early on, of course, was Elon Musk. We ended up selling him one of our first prototype units, and that resulted in, a whole lot of press, him mentioning us on Twitter, and, just helped get the word out so much. So we're, really grateful that happened. It was definitely kind of a turning point. But even before that, we were doing well. We were kind of setting records with some of the stuff we were trying to do. And, another big partner we have is D.R. Horton. They are, the largest home builder in the country. They noticed what we were doing. They came to our factory and checked us out. They are a traditional builder. They build, using contractors and lumber framing. They build on site. They've been doing it that way for a long time and being very successful at it. But they understand the limitations to that, the problems with it, and they were looking for a better way. And I think, when a company like that comes along and says, hey, these guys might be onto something, it means a lot, because they understand the problems with traditional building construction. They understand where the opportunities are. They understand what might work and what won't. So, getting them on board, they came here to this factory back when it was just an empty building. We had just started, and they met with us and they watched us, quickly get in here and set it up and execute and deliver. And then eventually they signed on as an investor, as kind of a partner, as a customer. And so that's been a huge partnership for us.
Huge. Having a familiarity with the space and talking about all of these different relationships you've built in the industry, outside of the industry. You mentioned crowdfunding. Why go down that road? I imagine you could get your funding rounds, as you said, takes a lot of capital, but closed out by VCs with all the traction that you have, with Elon Musk's and others talking about you, about how revolutionary the product is. What really captivated you about equity crowdfunding, and why did you choose to use this vehicle?
So at the beginning, I had never raised money for any projects I'd done before, so it was all new to me. I started by doing research on investors and reaching out to them and doing calls. And I got pretty burnt out pretty quickly pitching people. I have a big list of people that I called and talked to and explained what we were doing, and they just, didn't get it. maybe I wasn't doing a good job of conveying, or maybe they weren't, capable of understanding, what we were doing, and became very frustrating. We got a lot of very bad responses in a number of ways. Any offers we did get were like, as far as I'm concerned, borderline like abusive offers where they were, trying to come in and take over the company. And this wasn't just an idea where we had, had an idea and made a website. We had put millions of dollars in at this point of our own money to get this thing up and running. And, I said, this is not good. And then I came across the possibility of doing equity crowdfunding, and I looked into it, and I just didn't really see any downside. And any downside I had heard people say just didn't really seem legit. And, the benefits have turned out to be incredibly massive. So instead of me going out and kissing ass to get investors, we totally flipped it. And now we just put our presentation, put our information out there, one time, people come and see it, and they take it and leave it. And then we have all the leverage by doing it that way. We end up staying in control of the company. We end up calling all the shots. The market ends up determining our price, because if we put out something that people don't like, it won't sell. We won't get investors. But if we put out something that's good and they do like it, we'll sell it out quick, and maybe we'll set records along the way. And as you said, we've certainly done that, and we've kind of mastered the art of crowdfunding so far, and it's been amazing. And like I said before, all that marketing that we do for the investment, that just pays off in every area. At this point, we've talked to incredibly big names. We've talked to parties all around the world. We've talked to governments. We have, the world is at our fingertips, and, these opportunities continue to roll in every day through our website, through our contact forms, and we're just capturing them and keeping a list. And it's just like, it's so good. I'm so happy we went down this path of crowdfunding. I'm loving it. I mean, there is kind of, a downside to having as much publicity as we have. When you have this sheer number of people, there's bound to be, issues and troublemakers, but whatever, if you're going to be successful, that's going to happen in the end anyway.
Sure. And what type of magnitude are we talking about here? How many investors have you brought on? How much capital have you raised across your campaigns that you're able to share, of course?
Yeah, to date, we've raised over $140 million from over 40,000 investors. We also have 160,000 names on our wait list for our Casita product. We have, millions of social impressions per month. We have hundreds of thousands of followers across all our platforms. We have, mailing lists with hundreds of thousands of names on them. It's like absolutely mind-blowing.
An incredible audience. As a marketer, I know the value of that audience. It's a projector for how much can be raised when we're talking to groups that are looking to enter the space. And to think you built that from crowdfunding. What about the overlap from investors to people on your wait list?
Well, when I was looking into, who should we market to, I kind of realized there was two groups. One was people who are interested in investing and looking for something to invest to, and we wanted to show them Boxabl. But the other group was people that were just interested in Boxabl and might become investors, whether they were interested because they thought it was cool, because they wanted to be a customer, because they wanted to make a business out of it. And, so we started kind of targeting those two groups separately. And certainly there is, a big overlap. And, a lot of people see what they're doing, and they might not traditionally be an investor. They might not have even invested in anything ever before, but they realize like, oh, I know about building construction, and these guys are onto something, and I want in. So that was definitely great for us.
Interesting to hear about those variants. The user owner capacity is something that I am always talking to founders about. I've written articles about premium audience being user owners and how there's longer marketing funnels that incorporate each. So I understand how big your wait list is as well too, and I imagine that's a big part of the current capital raise and to feed in to production and be able to support some of the projects that you're talking about. You mentioned governments in there. I imagine the
Yeah.
volume needed for the next years of production is a pretty complex task on itself.
Yeah, the scale of what we're doing is crazy. That number of wait list is insane. The amount of people that want this product, the money you need to actually achieve and deliver on something like that. It's kind of like I put out that wait list in order to show investors, hey, if we build these, they'll sell. But now we've kind of got this crazy level of interest where I'm saying, hey, I think I can sell billions of dollars in just this first initial product. Let's get there. Let's scale up a factory. So what we're trying to do next is basically build the largest house factory ever done in the history of the world.
Wow.
And we're trying to raise, $1 billion to do that next. So we are still raising money from, accredited investors. And, we're trying to prove the point here in this initial factory, what the potential is of this solution. And I think as the days go by and we continue to dial it in, it's going to become more and more obvious to anyone looking in that these guys figured it out. And before you know it, I think that it's going to be very clear that, we have a solution. And once we get to that tipping point, I think, resources and opportunities are going to roll in like crazy to scale.
100%. And using that word scale again, that's really what stood out to me about your response, about what you guys are doing as a whole, not just the scale of the equity crowdfund campaign, but like you said, we're raising $1 billion. We already have 60,000 investors. We're bringing on all of these new individuals, accredited retail to come along for the ride. And we will have the largest manufacturing for our industry right here. And I imagine that's just one of potentially many. Don't want to ask anything that would be forward looking, of course, but just to get a taste of the, sheer size you're going after is incredible. All the different applications that you mentioned. Want to ask you a few questions for founders. So if they're hearing this and saying, wow, I don't like being on investor calls. I want to start mapping this out, or I have a solution for a space where we're the outsider. I want to really emerge into it. How do they go about it? What would have been any recommendations that you've been able to provide founders in terms of what to test to get where they're going based on what you've seen work? I always look at marketing, entrepreneurship, growth as a series of tests. What can be tested out towards their model that's worked for Boxabl?
Yeah, I think, once you get to a certain point in the development of your business and, you have a clear path forward and you have a clear kind of exit strategy for investors and you're starting to think like, all right, this is something that's going to work, that people can believe in. If it's possible at all that, a large amount of people will even understand what you're doing, which in most cases it is, and you want to do crowdfunding, well, the barrier to entry is not that high on it. So you can definitely go out and without risking too much, just give it a shot. And that's when I started, I thought like, all right, worst case, this doesn't work. No one invests. Only a few people invest and we just cancel it. We refund them, whatever. But that's not what happened for us. And I don't think it would be for a lot of people. So I would definitely, suggest people to research Regulation CF, Regulation D, look at the crowdfunding portals that are out there, look at the payment processors that allow you to do it direct on your own websites, find the lawyers that specialize in this and can give you the insights. And, it's just definitely, not a big downside to just putting yourself out there. And the cool thing is, if you have a button on your website where people can invest and you leave it up there, what's the worst that happens? Maybe you get in the news in a few months and, 100,000 people see your product in the news and you can bet, and people are going to come and invest. So I think it's totally worth a shot for everyone.
Sure. Testing out by conversations with the portals, service providers in the industry, determining how to roll out a campaign. Were there any channels that you tested that you would highly recommend, whether it's advertising, you're talking about a news article, maybe it's press, content marketing, email, conferences, road shows, anything that you would definitely lean into or avoid?
I would say the main thing to do is go and find someone who has a social channel, someone who's an influencer who has a relevant audience to you. So if you're making houses and you have someone who has a YouTube channel talking about houses or real estate, you want them to share your stuff with their audience. So that's what I would go first, and you'll probably get results for free like we did. I basically went out and found a bunch of YouTubers at the very beginning, cold emailed them and said, hey, you want to do a video on us? And they'll do it because they want content. They have to keep feeding their audience. And if you have a targeted audience that you're able to get in front of, you're going to see results, whether it's crowdfund or customers or whatever else. That's definitely, a great place to start. And, just make sure that you're capturing those leads as well. Make sure you have your social channels live. Make sure you have, the form on your website for, email and phone number that you can capture that from people. And so that when you're ready to remarket to them, you can do it.
Tap into organizers of existing audiences and communities, whether it's a YouTuber with a very engaged viewer base or any type of group online, and then capturing that contact info. So instead of anticipating them to invest on the first touch, you now have multiple channels, multiple mediums that you could do the follow-ups on.
Yeah, and don't forget to install your pixels too. The Google, Facebook pixel. That's going to allow you to later on, when you're ready, pop into their phone on their Facebook feed or on random websites that are running Google ads. And, then you can really hammer it home and remind them about you and harass them about you and educate them more on whatever you're working on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all in the follow-up, all in the retargeting. My friends blame me anytime we have a conversation about something and they start seeing ads on it and saying, you marketers, you did this, but it's because it works. That repetition is needed. And like you're saying, you're able to capture a good amount of with the pixel and whatever you can to have that recurrence happening. What about to optimize? What if it's not working right out of the gate? I listen to a lot of these podcasts, read articles, and it sounds so easy. Someone listening in may hear the success, over 140 million, everything you've been able to accomplish. But what if they launch some ads, they have their pixels in place, and it's not happening, in the first week, the first few weeks? What are your approaches towards improvement?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to, first of all, just be working, incredibly hard all the time. It's not going to be easy. You have to be very focused on the little details. Make sure you're trying to adjust every little detail, adjust every variable you can in your favor. Don't be afraid to totally drop something and run with something else. I think it's called like a kind of a sunk cost fallacy, where you feel like, oh, I've already invested X in this plan and I've already put that much in. Don't be afraid to just scrap it and try something else. Cause a lot of times, you have to do that. And, just really it's going to be a grind. And, I think that trying to get people to understand what you're doing, especially through, really quick videos and images that they might only see for a second. You might only have a second to capture someone's interest. And for us, it was this one video where the house was kind of folding up on a sunny day. And that video went viral many times. And, that was kind of a little bit of a lucky break that video just hit the algorithms in the right way. So you definitely have to, try to capture a lot of stuff.
Yes. A/B test until you get it right. I think I know which video you're talking about. I think we looked at it internally long before meeting you guys directly or ever having the chance to do anything together. Once you find that right, grabbing creative, it can really make all the difference. And if you give up right before, it makes all the tests a loss. And I like how you said it has to be something you're always putting energy into. We've watched the most active founders run the most successful campaigns, whether we were part of them, whether we were not. We've certainly seen it in our client list, though. And that definitely fits your role. You're front and center, conferences, ads, TV, you name it. I've seen other groups kind of want to take a back seat. So not only do I applaud that and attribute it to the success of what I've seen you and Boxabl do, but how have you been able to apply that to scale? Meaning we've seen founders say, hey, this is working. Let's double into the ads. Let's do this. Let's do that. How were you able to inject yourself into these channels to scale? Because you could have had a successful Reg CF and said, great, we got some capital, going to go the VC route now and point at the success. But no, instead you've raised 9 figures from these efforts. And there's something that's been involved with your scale that other issuers haven't been able to figure out. So what have been the key drivers of Boxabl's scale for the equity crowdfund campaigns you've run?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to jump in and learn like so much about every little thing, and just keep dialing it in. And then for me, I just took what worked and kept doubling down on it, kept trying to find new audiences, new ways to get in front of people. And if someone does a CF and it works, well, then they definitely should keep going because it's working. What's going to stop it? But right now we're definitely scaling up, and at a certain point, one person can't do it all, and you have to put teams in place, and you have to set up procedures, and you have to kind of delegate responsibilities and trust other people to take care of things, and then the whole machine can kind of grow from there.
Awesome. Well, Galiano, I can't tell you how valuable this is for me. I'm already through a page of notes, going to be walking through this with my team. I'm sure listeners are going to have the same type of experience, maybe even some questions. As we begin to wrap up, what are some final thoughts that you want to leave listeners, founders, marketers, VC industry professionals with? And if they want to continue the conversation or even just learn more about Boxabl, what is the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, I would definitely tell them to pay attention to Boxabl, because it's not a coincidence that we're where we are, and we're not stopping now. And if anyone wants to learn more, please check out our social media, Instagram, YouTube. Basically, since the beginning, we've posted almost everything we've done on there, and we'll continue to do that. We also welcome anyone to come visit our factory and reach out to us anytime.
Factory visit, definitely recommend you take Galiano and the team up on that. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's a privilege to be able to have you on the show here. I am fully in belief of what you're saying about where you guys are going and not stopping. I think this is going to be one of the podcasts I'm able to point at years down the line and say, yeah, I swear he was on the show. Galiano was there. So I appreciate you taking the time to hop on and share your wisdom in terms of what's been working.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Galiano. Take care, and want to thank everybody for listening in. We'll see you next time.